Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Manachari Jamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Paramahansa, Parvadikacharya, Ashtotar, Kashishi Man, Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parvadikacharya, Ashtotar, Kashishi Man, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the sum of the devotees. All glories to the sum of the devotees. All glories to the sum of the devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. More. And open this one too. It's very hot. Why is it so hot, Marcy? I thought it was cooling off. It's only 10 days till fall. What's going on here? Climate change. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Did we finish the chapter? Around we last on we are in chapter 8? I thought we did. Okay. Alrighty. On this 11th day of September 2017, we're reading Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're beginning chapter 8 entitled Attaining the Supreme, page 345. Before I proceed, turn it down, okay? I feel like I'm in a big stadium here. Ah, Krishna. Hare Krishna. Did you turn it down? No, that's down. Okay, Haribol, good. All right. Did I say text 1 already? More or less? Okay. Arjuna Vacha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Hari Bhutam Cha Kim Proktam Hari Daivam Kim Uchyate. Arjuna Vacha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim karma purushottama adibhutam chikim proktam adidaivam kimuchyate. I know it's difficult. Move over one. The lady side. Sorry. Arjuna vacha kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adibhutam chikim proktam adidaivam kimuchyate. Damodar. Acha. Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adibhutam chikim proktam adidaivam kimuchyate. Arjuna vacha kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam. Pull up the seat. Yeah. Kim karma purushottama adibhutam chikim proktam adidaivam kimuchyate. Okay, before we proceed, can you give him that book? Or you have? Or give her that book? Okay, very good. All right, you got the page? Okay, Parashakti, please. Arjuna vacha kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adibhutam chikim proktam adidaivam kimuchyate. Arjuna vacha kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adibhutam chikim proktam adidaivam kimuchyate. Just one mistake. Only one mistake. Hari bol. Arjuna vacha, Arjuna said, kim what tat that brahma, Brahman, kim what adhyatmam, the self, kim what karma, fruit of activities, purusha uttama, O supreme person, adibhutam, the material manifestation, cha, and kim what proktam is called, adidaivam, the demigods, kim what uchate is called. Translation. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruit of activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Purport. In this chapter, Lord Krishna answers different questions from Arjuna, beginning with, what is Brahman? The Lord also explains karma, fruit of activities, devotional service, and yoga principles, and devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the Supreme Absolute Truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In addition, the living entity, the individual soul, is also called Brahman. Arjuna also inquires about Atma, which refers to the body, soul, and mind. According to the Vedic dictionary, Atma refers to the mind, soul, body, and the senses also. Arjuna has addressed the Supreme Lord as Purushottama, Supreme Person, which means that he was putting these questions not simply to a friend, but to the Supreme Person, knowing him to be the supreme authority able to give definitive answers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So let me call your attention to the last two verses of the previous chapter, in which Krishna is saying that one who, well, first text 28, he's saying that one who is free from all sinful activities and performs only punya, in this case meaning devotional activities, overcomes the delusion of duality and worships him with very firm faith, Dravida Vrata. And such a person attains, takes shelter of me, Mama Shritya Tantiyes, and strives, and becomes free from jara and marana, old age and death. And then, tad Brahma tad Vidu Kritsam, he understands completely what is Brahman, what is Adhyatmam, what is karma. The next verse, what is Adi Bhuta, what is Adi Daiva, what is Adi Yagya, and knows Krishna also. So the first verse of this next chapter is right coming from the last two verses of the previous chapter. Arjuna says, or Krishna says that the devotee knows these things, and Arjuna says, well, what are they actually? What is Brahman? What is karma? So we're getting a little review now from Krishna on these important subjects. Now you may be a little puzzled because this word Brahman has many definitions according to the context. Even the material energy can be known as Brahman. Krishna says in the 14th chapter, I impregnate this material energy, otherwise known as Brahman, with all of the living entities. And then everything develops from that. So we have to know the context of what Brahman actually means. So we're going to learn all that from Krishna. Okay, so should we go on? Text number 2. He's actually continuing his questions. Adiyagya katham kotra dehismin madhusudana priyana kale chakatam geyosi niyatatma bihi. Who is the Lord of sacrifice, and how does he live in the body, O Madhusudan? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Purport. Lord of sacrifice may refer either to Indra or Vishnu. Vishnu is the chief of the primal demigods, including Brahma and Shiva, and Indra is the chief of the administrative demigods. Both Indra and Vishnu are worshipped by yajna performances. But here Arjuna asks who is actually the Lord of yajna, sacrifice, and how the Lord is residing within the body of the living entity. Arjuna addresses the Lord as Madhusudana, because Krishna once killed a demon named Madhu. Actually, these questions, which are of the nature of doubts, should not have arisen in the mind of Arjuna, because Arjuna is a Krishna-conscious devotee. Therefore, these doubts are like demons. Since Krishna is so expert in killing demons, Arjuna here addresses him as Madhusudana, so that Krishna might kill the demonic doubts that have arisen in Arjuna's mind. Now, the word priyana kale in this verse is very significant because whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. That's what priyana kale means. Arjuna is very anxious to know of those who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. What should be their position at that final moment? At the time of death, all the bodily functions are disrupted, and the mind is not in a proper condition. Thus disturbed by the bodily situation, one may not be able to remember the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Kulashekar, a great devotee, prays, My dear Lord, just now I am quite healthy, and it is better that I die immediately, so that the swan of my mind can seek entrance at the stem of your lotus feet. The metaphor is used because the swan, a bird of the water, takes pleasure in digging into the lotus flowers. Its sporting proclivity is to enter the lotus flower. Maharaj Kulashekar says to the Lord, Now my mind is undisturbed and I am quite healthy. If I die immediately thinking of your lotus feet, then I am sure that my performance of your devotional service will become perfect. But if I have to wait for my natural death, then I do not know what will happen, because at that time the bodily functions will be disrupted, my throat will be choked up, and I do not know whether I shall be able to chant your name. Better let me die immediately. Arjuna questions how a person can fix his mind on Krishna's lotus feet at such a time. So this is the completion of Arjuna's questions, which covers all the topics that Krishna mentioned at the end of the last chapter. The Adiyagya, now this prefix Adhi is used 3 times here, Adidaiva, Adibhuta, and Adiyagya. And it means the central principle or guiding, controlling force. What is the real essence of Yagya and Daiva? What is Daiva? Krishna referred to these principles, so Arjuna is asking, what does they really mean for our benefit? And then the key element here is priyana kale chikatam, as how can one know you at the time of death? This is the whole final exam for all of the yoga that we're performing. Is can we remember Krishna when we finally leave this body, or as is so poetically said, cast off the mortal coil? You know, that's what it's all about. So that's there's 3 verses that are coming up that are very important. They kind of summarize this whole principle of cultivating Krishna consciousness, chanting Hare Krishna, all of the purports we mentioned chanting Hare Krishna, so that at that time, and we don't know exactly when it will be, we can remember Krishna. So let's see. There was a couple of things I wanted to mention. The Lord of Sacrifice. Now there's these primal demigods, and then there's the administrative demigods that are mentioned here. The primal demigods are normally called the Guna avatars. This is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, the famous Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. And they're on a different level than the administrative demigods, such as Indra and Vayu and Varuna and Surya. These are all in charge of different elements, really. You know, Varuna is in charge of the waters, and Vayu is in charge of the air, and Surya is in charge of the light. You know, they're very important administrative demigods. But above them are these 3, and especially Vishnu. Vishnu is in a class by himself, but he's sometimes classed amongst the others because he's one of the Guna avatars. Vishnu is overseeing the mode of goodness, Brahma of passion, and Shiva of ignorance. Now, what's the quality of the mode of passion that's so prominent? Creation, doing things. Brahma is in charge of creation. Vishnu has the hardest job of maintenance. It's easy to bring things, you know, to create something, but to maintain it over a period of time, that's not so easy. And destruction, that's the easiest of all. That's in the mode of ignorance. So Shiva has that role with his Tandava Nritya, and there's a whole understanding of how he does it. So Prabhupada makes that point. And that the Lord of Sacrifice, now famously, it is said in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that in this age Krishna doesn't appear as himself so obviously. He appears in a covered form, but he does appear. And it's described, Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Sangopangastra Parshadam Yagyar Sankitana Praya Yujantihi Sumedasa. That in this age Krishna appears in the form of Lord Chaitanya. And Varna also has different meanings. One of the meanings is letter. He's always, or syllable, he's always chanting the syllables Krishna, 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 as in Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But his complexion is not blackish like the original Krishnas. So his Trisha, as a complexion, is Akrishnam, not blackish. And he appears not alone. No avatars appear alone. He appears with his anga, there's the limbs, very, very intimate associates like Nityananda, Advaita, the Panchatattva. And his upa-angas is other intimate, slightly less intimate, you know, devotees like Swarup Damodar and Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit is part of the Panchatattva, sorry. And then his Parshada, all of his associates. You read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, his whole list. He's got his Navadvip devotees, and he's got his Puri devotees, thousands of them. So he comes, and then the key element of this verse, well, how do we relate to him? Yagyar Sankitana Praya, for the most part, by performing the sacrifice of chanting the holy name together. Is it such a big sacrifice? Prabhupada would always point out how in previous ages, especially Treta Yuga, the means of approach of the Lord was elaborate sacrifices. You know, you can imagine employing, they had, you know, trained priests, Brahmins, they were from birth, they learned how to chant the mantras exactly right, you know. But in spite of that, they had a whole other set of Brahmins who were watching the original Brahmins, and if they made a mistake, they would immediately catch them. Because one syllable different can change the whole thing. You remember Tvashta? I don't know if you remember in the pastime with Chitraketu. Anyway, it's a long story, but the father of one priest who had volunteered to help the demigods because they were battling demons, and Indra had insulted Brahaspati, his guru. And Brahaspati turned on his heel, walked out of the assembly. They couldn't find him. This is a big problem. And so the demigods were weakened, and the demons took advantage of it and took over the whole heavenly planets. So the whole thing in the sixth canon. So Trashta was a great Brahmin. He had a son, another great Brahmin named Vishwarup. He happened to have 3 heads. It's not impossible. And so he volunteered to be the priest and the guru of the demigods. Okay, it's a big deal. But he had some line coming down from his mother, or, you know, some line that he had some asuric element. So he was also offering some oblations on that side. Indra saw him from, hiding behind a pillar, gets enraged, cuts off all of his heads. See, Indra has a tendency to fly off the handle, as you know from New Govardhan. So Thrashta became enraged. Here's the father who offered his son, and now his son is dead. So he decides to perform a sacrifice to call a demon who will then annihilate Indra. And, he knows all the mantras, and he's got all the Brahmins already. But in the process, because he was a little angry, he chanted one syllable in the wrong place. And so instead of calling forth a demon who would kill Indra, he called forth a devotee dressed as a demon whom Indra would kill. And then that devotee would be relieved of his demonic body and go back to Godhead, and Indra would have to suffer the sinful reactions for killing a Brahmin. So this is the story of Vritrasura. It's in the 6th canto. I said, when I read that, I first said, this should be a movie. This would make a fantastic, Lucasfilm or something. Anyway, so the point is that we can't pronounce these things. That's pretty obvious every time we give class, just these simple mantras. But we don't have to. That's the thing. We can chant Hare Krishna, and even if we don't pronounce perfectly, I'll tell you a story. When Tamal Krishna Maharaj went to China, much against his desire, Prabhupada told him to go to China. He wouldn't let him off the hook, so finally he surrendered. So he opened up China. An amazing story. So he found that the devotees there, and there were many who were eager to learn, they had trouble chanting Hare Krishna. I think the Chinese have a lot of trouble with the R's. It sounds like L. So Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. There's a lot of R's in the mantra. Look at all that. Every word has an R. So the devotee was worried. What am I going to do? He said, just keep chanting. It doesn't matter. Krishna sees your sincerity. And he did. He was chanting, and he ended up chanting 64 rounds and became a very advanced devotee. After some time, he was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. So the point is, Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana. Bhavagrahi Janardana. And I wish I could remember this verse. Nitya Gorch turned me on to this verse once. The actual phrase, Bhavagrahi Janardana, means that Janardana, Krishna, he sees or grasps your bhava, your actual feeling. That's what he's after. He's not after some perfect pronunciation. He's after your mood, your love. That's all that counts for him. You can't offer him anything else. He doesn't need anything else, but that's what he wants. That's what he really wants. So, unlike these other sacrifices where you have to, it's all very official. With the, if you want a boon from a demigod, it's got to be exactly right, otherwise you can get. So this, what does it say? Murkam vadati Vishnaya. Brahman vadati Vaishnave. Ubayor punya drishtasta bhavagradi janarana. That's exactly. That's not exactly the verse, but what he's saying is the murka, the fool, someone doesn't really know Sanskrit. He says Vishnaya, just like we say Krishnaya, Radhaya. This is the way of addressing. It's a grammatical form of addressing someone. It's very scientific language, but there are exceptions. The vocative, it's called the vocative form of Vishnu, is not Vishnaya, it's Vishnave. And so the fool, he says it's Vishnaya, not knowing. And the learned Sanskrit scholar Brahman, he says Vishnave. But they both get the same benefit, because Bhava Grahi Janardana, because Janardana is looking for the feeling, he doesn't care if you mispronounce something. So that's very encouraging for us. So Yajna Sankirtana Prabhu, he's Lord Chaitanya, the avatar of the age, who is golden avatar. His complexion is not Krishna, blackish. He's always uttering Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, accompanied by his associates. He's chiefly worshipped by the sacrifice of Sankirtan. And so that's why he can be called the Yajna Purushya, or what is it? Lord of Sacrifice. That's what Adi Yajna. Okay. Then this whole thing of doubts, killing doubts. Doubts can actually completely destroy your devotion. We are trying to develop faith. Faith is the foundation of anything you do. In the 17th chapter, Arjuna asked the question, what is the quality of faith of those who reject the Shastra? And Krishna says, oh, it's all in different modes of nature, as everything else. And that's where he talks about food in the different modes, you know, and intelligence in the different modes, everything in the different modes. So what is that faith? Why do we need faith? Because we can't see. We can't perceive Krishna right off the bat. Our vision is clouded because we've been in the material world so long. So the faith is created by the faithful. This was probably one of his greatest gifts, is that because he was so certain, he was experiencing Krishna directly in all of these transcendental subjects. Do you need a chair, Prabhu? Okay. Then he was able to infuse that faith in others. Just like if someone comes back from Beijing. Has anyone here been to Beijing? Okay. But we have faith that it exists, right? Of course, we see that, you know, from the fountain of truth, you know, the TV screen and all of these media. Yeah. But still, imagine there wasn't such a thing. If someone comes back from there whom we trust and tells us all about it, gives us details, you know, then we'll say, oh, I trust you. Yeah, there's a place called Beijing. I want to go there too. You see what I'm saying? So that's Prabhupada is there from Goloka. He's coming from Goloka. He said, yeah, there's a place like that. It's right here. And he was able to infuse enough faith. The measure of faith is the measure of your devotion. So no one starts out of pure devotion. Enough faith to begin the process. That's the key. So Rupa Goswami says in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Adhar Shraddha. The beginning is faith. Shraddha is faith. Where your heart is, where you place your energy, and what you believe this is the best place because I'll get something out of it. So Adhar Shraddha. What is the next step? It brings you into the association of devotees. We're back to Sadhu Sangha. Because with Sadhu Sangha, your faith will increase. Because you're now among the faithful. You see? And then Bhajana Kriya. And then the next step is to actually practice, which basically means chant Hare Krishna seriously, together and on beads. And once you do that, then you're directly coming in touch with Krishna through the sound vibration. And he himself is increasing your faith and your realization and your purification. So it goes on, and then there's the long process, often long, sometimes lifetimes long, of anartha nivritti. Of cleansing away all of the unwanted things in the heart, means in the consciousness, in the form of attachments, in the form of grudges, in the form of ignorance, all of these different things. There's basically 6: kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, intoxication. So those things get a process of purification, and how fast that purification takes place is depending on our enthusiasm. That's why we have Dravida Vrata. You remember the Dravida Vrata in that verse in the end of Yesham Dvandakatam Papam Jananam Punyakamanam Te Dvanda Mohane Magdabhajante Mam Dravida Vrata. For those who have ceased their sinful activities. What's the most broad definition of sin? Any activity which is against Krishna consciousness. So there's serious sins, and there's also less serious sins, but all of them are impediments. So to come to the point of sinlessness is not so easy. But if you do that, then your practice of Krishna consciousness becomes very firmly fixed. You're really determined. Otherwise, you're dragging anchors, you know, and they impede your enthusiasm. So it's all a question of how much we want it and how much we're serious about this purification process. So I'm not going to go up the rest of the ladder, but there's that ladder from faith to love, from Shraddha to Prema. Nicely described by Rupa Goswami. We should all know that. So then Prabhupada talks about Priyana Kale, the end time. That's our each personal time of leaving the body. And Arjuna is asking these questions. He's also asking for us. Now Prabhupada then talks about King Kulashekar. And this verse that Prabhupada is referring to, now it's interesting, he goes into quite a detail here. Prabhupada started singing this verse when he had his stroke and he was in the recuperation. This is when he would sing this verse. And it was very poignant when you understood what he's saying there. Krishna Padiya Padapanga Japanjarantam Adhyavame Vishatumana Saraja Hansa Prana Prayana Samaye Kapavata Pittar Kantavarodana Badho Smaranam Krutaste. Did you ever hear that recording? So Krishna, it's directly addressing Krishna. Krishna Tvadiya Padapanga Japan. Your lotus feet the swan of my mind, let it become entangled in the tendrils of the lotus of your feet. You see? In other words, let me get completely absorbed now, and let me leave the body. Because prana priyana, this is the end of the life breath. In other words, death, when death comes. Kapavata pitta, my throat can be choked up. You know, all the bodily areas become disjointed. You know, if you've seen anybody die, you know, but it's a scary situation. And how to, you know, keep your mind steady at that time. I mean, I heard some accounts of Gandharvika. She was online, you know, he was monitoring, and as the time was coming. And she said, oh, it's much harder to chant with absorption now in this difficult situation than even when you're in good health. So it's a real thing. So this, you know, poignant prayer, I said, well, now I'm in good health, so let it just come quickly now, and I'll be able to focus on you rather than risk the time of death, you know. So Prabhupada was saying, you know, he came this close, you know, back in '67. This whole thing almost didn't happen. Krishna intervened directly. So, Priyanakali, that's really what it leads up to, and that will come in a few verses. Very important verse, text 5, when it comes in. Okay, do we have time? Let's go on, and let's do some discussion on these points. Yes, Prabhu. Prabhupada. From Goloka Vrindavan, the spiritual world. It's understood he's sent as an emissary. And that, see, these great acharyas, they live on two planes. They're here with us, but at the same time, internally, he's always rendering his personal service to Krishna. So this is one of the reasons why you can't be shaken. You know, I mean, so many difficulties he underwent to start this movement and grow this movement. But he remained determined, in spite of seemingly overwhelming difficulties to do it, because he was on that platform, the transcendental platform. It's mentioned many times in the Gita. You know, yeah, that's where we want to try to get to. All right, let's see what some of Krishna's answers. Now these, you know, answers of course require some explanation. Prabhupada expands in the purports. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatmamuchyate Bhuta Bhavo Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Sangitaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruit of activities. Purport. Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is Para-Brahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Para-Brahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the Lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. In Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jivatma and Brahman, but he is never called Para-Brahman. The living entity, or Jivatma, takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter, and sometimes he identifies himself with the superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy. According to his identification with material or spiritual nature, he receives a material or spiritual body. In material nature, he may take a body from any of the 8,400,000 species of life. But in spiritual nature, he has only one body. In material nature, he is manifested sometimes as a man, demigod, animal, beast, bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain material heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices, yajna. But when his merit is exhausted, he returns to earth again in the form of a man. This process is called karma. The Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offerings are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets, clouds, the earth, man, and woman. And the 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, the enjoyer on the moon, rain, grains, and semen. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends to earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains, and the grains are eaten by man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Impersonalist commentators on the Bhagavad Gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of Jiva in the material world, and to substantiate this they refer to chapter 15, verse 7 of the Gita. But in this verse, the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of myself. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord, Achyuta, never falls down. Therefore, this assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of Jiva is not acceptable. It is important to remember that in Vedic literature, Brahman, the living entity, is distinguished from Para-Brahman, the Supreme Lord. So, there's a lot of information here. First of all, this definition of Brahman. And here Prabhupada is distinguishing the individual Brahman from the Para-Brahman. Para-Brahman is, without question, the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Spirit, which is Krishna, as a person. Now, we're also eternally persons, but at the same time we're spoken of as energy, marginal energy, so it can get a little confusing. And I like to think of it as this, it's like, we know that Krishna has the 3 aspects, right? There's Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. This was mentioned in the previous purport. According to the means of approach, one can realize this Supreme Absolute Truth in any of these 3 features. And they're progressively more complete. Brahman is understood to be the effulgence of the body of the Lord. Think of it that way. We think of everything as personal. So, but there's no understanding of the personality or form. It's simply white light. And the impersonalists aspire for that. They don't think that the supreme reality is personal. They think that the ultimate reality is impersonal and that the personal derives from the impersonal. But Krishna spoke in the previous chapter, in text number 25, about that, avyaktam, text 24, avyaktam vyaktamapana manyate mam abudhya. Unintelligent men who don't know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they're abudhya. They don't understand reality. So this is the Mayavad idea, is that the ultimate reality is undifferentiated, unvariegated, impersonal oneness, which is bright light. And that's where we want to go. Because if we get there, we won't have any body to suffer and we'll be eternal like that. But they neglect the reality that we as souls are not only consciousness, but we're eternal persons. Eternal conscious persons. And we have an eternal role to play in Krishna's Leela. And those Leela completely preclude this impersonal liberation. They're far beyond it. They include it and preclude it. Let me say that. If you're with Krishna in the spiritual world, you don't care about liberation. It's automatically included in the package. But if you're just liberated, and you're in undifferentiated Brahman, then you become bored, you become restless, because you're naturally a person, but there's no senses, there's nothing to do up there, except be free from suffering. That's not enough to keep you happy. And so you come down again. This is a verse like that. I'm paraphrasing a verse in the Bhagavad. So, individual Brahman, the general definition is indestructible, eternal existing, you see, pure consciousness. But we distinguish between Para-Brahman and individual Brahman. From that platform, from the Brahman platform, but not from the Bhagavan platform, not from the Vaikuntha. So Jivatma as opposed to the Supreme Person. Now, this idea of marginal energy is very important. Sanatana Goswami, when he asked Lord Chaitanya the question, who am I? Why am I suffering? You know, what am I really? You see? So Lord Chaitanya famously answered, and this is an important concept, it's kind of foundational for the whole thing. After all, we say, Gauravani Pacharine. Does that phrase ring a bell? This is part of the pranam mantras to Prabhupada. He's preaching or teaching the words of Gaur, Lord Chaitanya. So these words we should know. So who are we? Don't we want to know? Jivera, the Jiva. Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Beda Bed Prakash. Very important concept. Prabhupada deals with this idea of Tatasta Shakti. So the first foundational concept is that we as Jivas, Jivera, of the Jiva, of the individual living entity, our Swarup, our constitutional position is servants of Krishna. That's it. But that's not the end of it. Because the next line says, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti. We are the marginal potency of Krishna. Now this brings up the, well, what are some of the other potencies? If we're marginal potency, there's internal potency and there's external potency, and we're marginal. The internal potency is the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, Vaikuntha. And it's as complete or more complete and variegated as this world. There's nothing here that can exist without first existing there. Just like there's nothing in the reflection that's not in the reality. Right? This is a reflection of the spiritual world. So there's love there and there's love here. But this love is perverted and is frustrated because it comes to an end. It's based on the bodily relationships, but they're obviously temporary. You can't prolong them forever. Even, unfortunately, even before you die, these loving things. So, but there, the love is eternal. The beautiful friendship of Krishna's friends with his devotees, you know, with his servants in the friendly mood, with his parents, right? There's that rasa. That's a really important rasa here. Parents and children. We see sometimes on the Sunday feast, and Prithu brings his children. You know, there's a whole thing going on there. A lot of love flowing there, you know. But they know that the original, you know, beautiful relationship is with Krishna. That'll never end. And of course, Krishna and the gopis, there's that rasa as well, you know, and there's the servants. So that's all reflected here, but pervertedly and frustratingly. You cannot enjoy it. We think we can, but it's temporary. So, Tatasta Shakti. So that's the internal energy. The external energy we're very familiar with. It's right here. We're in between. We can choose either one. We've chosen the material side since time immemorial, and so we're habituated to that, or conditioned. But this is where frustration and suffering are. We want to get back home, back to Godhead, turn our attention to Krishna. We're marginal, we can go either way. Tatasta means like on the beach here, which sometimes covered, not covered with water. See? And so then Beta, so that's, we want, the whole process of Krishna consciousness is turning again toward Krishna and acting on the impetus from the internal energy. And then there's the last phrase, Beta Prakash. That we ourselves, as well as everything else, is simultaneously one with Krishna and separate from Krishna. This is a mind-blowing and mind-expanding concept, but that's the reconciliation of the whole thing. We're not God, but we are godly, and that quality can never be destroyed. It can be covered, but it cannot be destroyed. So the whole process is to bring forth our godly qualities again, saintly qualities. We're not just worshiping saints; we're trying to become saints. That's the whole idea. So I wanted to share this with you because I rediscovered this morning somehow. Anyway, it's coming to me. There's a phrase in one of Jiva Goswami's Sandarbhas. He wrote these 6 philosophical treatises, all in Sanskrit. There's really more foundations for this whole practice. And he has this phrase which really summarizes the mood of devotion, the essence of devotional service. So here's what he says. Bhajaniya padama purusha sukha matra swasukha dvam. So let's take this apart. This is really what it's all about. So the first word is bhajaniya, means worshipable. Parama Purusha is the Supreme Person, Krishna. So that worshipable Supreme Person. Sukha the happiness of the Supreme Person. You know, he's not just a punishing God. He's not just a creator. He's a person can be pleased. That's all I did. So Padma Purusha Bhajaniya Padma Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukatvam. Matra means only, solely. Swasukatvam, having the quality of taking one's pleasure only in the pleasure of the Supreme Worshipable Personality of Godhead. That's really what pure prema is all about. And you find that in the gopis. Ready to sacrifice anything. They sacrifice their good name, their marriages, running out to Krishna. Nothing mattered. And when you see that kind of dedication, where my own personal happiness doesn't matter, I'm going to simply serve Krishna, give up as much as possible of comforts of this life. That's where you see the advancement. Their only focus is on what does Krishna want. What are we reading here? The Bhagavad Gita, it's on the battlefield. Arjuna is going to have to perform the most materially difficult thing, to kill his friends and his relatives, his worshipable guru. On the material plane, it's the most horrific thing. He wants to leave the battlefield and forget about it. But Krishna wants him to fight for higher reasons, and that's the essence of why he's Arjuna. He surrenders at the end. Of course, he's bringing us along. He starts at the beginning. He says, "Nayotsya iti Govinda." He says to Govinda, "I will not fight." At the end, he says, "Kadishe vachanam tava." I will do as you say. And that's really, Prabhupada said, I heard him on the tape. We have to stop being no men and become yes men. Now of course the phrase yes men means that it's too obsequious, but the idea is that yes, Prabhu, yes. Hare Krishna. All right, I'm going to read Krishna book. So we did text 3, right? Did we do 6? Okay. So remind me tomorrow. We'll start with text 4, but I also want to cover this Visarga Karma Sangita. Bhuta Bhava Bhavakada. What is the essence of karma? It's activity that produces another body. It's a very wonderful definition. So I want to deal with that also. Remind me if I forget tomorrow. All right, so we're going to continue reading our Krishna book. And we finished the Brahman's wives, I believe. I think we're on the next chapter. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Krishna book. Oh, we're beginning worshipping Govardhan Hill. How auspicious is that? Okay, this is chapter 24 of the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada's summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, summary study was a phrase that Prabhupada introduced to us. It means it's a translation, a running translation, with interspersed commentary. That's what summary study is. It's not really a summary. It's not that he's taking anything out, but he called it a summary study. And that was, it's not the formal verse purport, but it's close to that. While engaged with the Brahmins who were too much involved in the performance of Vedic sacrifice, Krishna and Balaram also saw that the cowherd men were preparing a similar sacrifice in order to pacify Indra, the king of heaven, who is responsible for supplying water. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, a devotee of Krishna has strong and firm faith in the understanding that if he is simply engaged in Krishna consciousness and Krishna's transcendental loving service, then he is freed from all other obligations. A pure devotee of the Lord Krishna doesn't have to perform any of the ritualistic functions enjoined in the Vedas, nor is he required to worship any demigods. Being a devotee of Krishna, one is understood to have performed all kinds of Vedic rituals and all kinds of worship to the demigods. One does not develop devotional service for Krishna by performing the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or worshipping the demigods. But it should be understood that one who is engaged fully in the service of the Lord has already fulfilled all Vedic injunctions. To stop all such activities of his devotees, Krishna wanted to firmly establish exclusive devotional service during his presence in Vrindavan. Because he is the omniscient personality of Godhead, Krishna knew that the cowherd men were preparing for the Indra sacrifice. But as a matter of etiquette, he began to inquire with great honor and submission from elder personalities like Maharaj Nanda. Now there's 64 qualities of Krishna that are mentioned, and one of them is Vavaduka. And it is very skillful speaking, to be able to convince anyone of anything. So Krishna has that quality. He's only a 7-year-old boy. It's like, the 7-year-old boy, he comes to the father is in the kitchen. I do this today, so you've heard all my analogies already. And the father is preparing the tax reform. It's April 13th. He's got to express mail it the next day, you know what I'm saying? So the father's busy, and if he gets it in late, there's a penalty, and who knows what will happen. So the young boy comes and says, "Father, what are you doing?" He says, "Don't bother me now, I got to finish." "Father, please let me know." And so Krishna, he's so skilled. The father stops the preparations, explains it to Krishna, and then Krishna, with his skillful speaking, he convinces the father not to pay the taxes. And the father is very joyful just to serve the son. And then all, the authorities come down. But the son is able to protect the father from any... It's just like that. My dear father, what is this arrangement going on for a great sacrifice? What is the result of such a sacrifice, and for whom is it meant? How is it performed? Will you kindly let me know? I'm very eager to know this procedure, so please explain to me the purpose of this sacrifice. Upon this inquiry, his father Nanda remained silent, thinking that his young boy would not be able to understand the intricacies of performing the yajna. But Krishna persisted. My dear father, for those who are liberal and saintly, there's no secrecy. They do not think anyone to be a friend or an enemy or a neutral party, because they're always open to everyone. And even for those who are not so liberal, nothing should be kept secret from the family members and friends, although secrecy may be maintained for persons who are inimical. Therefore, you can't keep any secrets from me. All persons are engaged in fruitive activities. Some know what these activities are, and they know the result, and some execute activities without knowing the purpose or the result. A person who acts with full knowledge gets the full result. One who acts without knowledge does not get such a perfect result. Therefore, please let me know the purpose of the sacrifice you are going to perform. Is it according to Vedic injunction, or is it simply a popular ceremony? Kindly let me know in detail about the sacrifice. So now he's convinced Nanda to explain. On hearing this inquiry from Krishna, Nanda replied, My dear boy, this ceremonial performance is more or less traditional. Because rainfall is due to the mercy of Indra, and the clouds are his representatives, and because water is so important for our living, we must show some gratitude to the controller of this rainfall. King Indra, we are arranging, therefore, to pacify Indra, because he has very kindly sent us clouds to pour down a sufficient quantity of rain for successful agricultural activities. Water is very important. Without rainfall, we can't farm or produce grain. Without grain, we can't live. Therefore, rain is necessary for successful religious ceremonies, economic development, and ultimately, liberation. So we should not give up this traditional ceremonial function. If one gives it up, being influenced by lust, greed, or fear, then it does not look very good for him. After hearing this, Krishna, in the presence of his father and all the elder cowherd men of Vrindavan, spoke in such a way as to make the heavenly king, Indra, very angry. He suggested that they forego the sacrifice. His reasons for discouraging the sacrifice performed to please Indra were twofold. First, as stated in the Gita, there is no need to worship the demigods for any material advancement. All results derived from worshipping the demigods are simply temporary, and only those who are less intelligent are interested in temporary results. I think we just read that in the 7th chapter. Second, whatever temporary result one does derive from the worship of the demigods is actually granted by the supreme permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We just read that. He's just reciting from the 7th chapter. It is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, Maya bhagavadgita class. I think that's in the 9th chapter. Whatever benefit is supposed to be derived from the demigods is actually bestowed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without the permission of the Lord, one cannot bestow any benefit upon others. But sometimes the demigods become puffed up by the influence of material nature. Thinking themselves all in all, they forget the supremacy of Krishna. In the Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated that in this instance, Krishna wanted to make King Indra angry. Krishna's advent was especially meant for annihilation of the demons and protection of the devotees. Indra was certainly a devotee, not a demon, but because he was puffed up, Krishna wanted to teach him a lesson. He first made Indra angry by stopping the Indra Puja, which had been arranged by the cowherd men. So, we'll see how that turns out tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And I'm monitoring my trip. I'm headed to go to Florida on Thursday, provided the Jacksonville airport is open.
Safe and dry in North Carolina? Suresh, help me with this. Prabhu? Suresh, come on. We're going to explore that concert in a minute.
Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pasachari Satarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Bol, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Bo Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Shri Radha Giri Hare Gita. Jai Mr. Bhat, Paramahansa, Bhagavadgitacharya, Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Radha Radha Dayine Radha Hiranyakashipo Vakshaha Ashilatankana Kalaye Ito Nishinga Parato Nishingo Yato Yato Yamitato Nishinga Bahi Nishingo Rindaye Nishingo Nrsimhamading Sharanang Prapaje Tapakara Kamala Vadena Kama Bhutta Shringa Dharita Hiranyakashipu Tharubringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Tapakara Kamala Vare Amrita Singha Dharita Hiranyakashipu Tanumbrenya Devadrita Nararirupa Jagadi Ankeshavandrita Nararirupa Jagadish Hare Jagadi Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Keshavandrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Keshavandrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Keshavandrita Narari Rupa Jai Nrsimhadev 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 Jai Nrsimhadev Jai Nrsimhadev 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 Jai Nrsimhadev Jaya Narahari 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 Jaya Narahari Singha Bhagavan ki jai, Prabhupada Maharaj ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much. You tired?